Hello, we are your hosts, Justin W. Wilson and Shane D. Cox. Here again at Tangled Rights. We come from the law firm of Cox & Wilson PLC in Las Vegas, Nevada. I was actually thinking about something this morning when I was thinking about doing the podcast today, and I realized it probably sounds insanely pretentious whenever I focus on my middle name, my middle initial rather. And so I kind of wanted to give just a slight disclaimer to explain that I'm not a complete douchebag.
Complete.
Everybody has tendencies, right? It's a spectrum and we're all on it. Anyway, so the reason that I do that is because there are actually two Justin Wilson attorneys here in town. And we both have some overlap in the law that we practice. And so I sometimes will get phone calls for him or even dumber things. Like I'll check in at court and they'll have him listed as the attorney record on a criminal matter and he doesn't do any criminal law.
Sometimes we'll get medical records sent to us.
Yeah.
For their files. Not that there's any HIPAA violations and we would out anyone, but
no. But so I never bothered to do that. Like I actually don't really like my middle name with the way that it works, the JWW thing. I think it kind of, the alliteration is a bit weird. But I'm so used to it now that I say that. And when I was thinking about this, I don't know, I was just sitting there thinking about the way that I speak and I was like, man, I probably sound like such a douche.
Justin W. Wilson,
Justin
Esquire.
Wilson.
Shane D. Cox, Esquire.
Yeah, well, at least I don't say it like that. Anyway, so we're back. We've had some developments in one of the topics we talked about last week since then.
One of our posts on TikTok went a little viral. 30,000+ views on Scottie Scheffler.
That's not viral.
For us.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, when the benchmark is 0, sure.
So Scottie Scheffler.
I thought viral was 1 million views.
It is.
Okay, so we didn't
But
go viral.
it's good for you guys no matter what. It's still really
We're
good.
doing great.
We're
doing really good.
We're graded on a curve.
Little people, big world. And we're just excited to be here.
Scottie Scheffler's
Cut that
case. Scottie Scheffler's case got dismissed. So no charges. And it sounds like, and we're not privy to all the details all the time, but publicly what's being stated is that he agreed also not to sue the Louisville Police Department as well, but the case has been dropped. There were statements made by the police officer, a statement made by Scottie Scheffler.
His attorney as well.
His attorney made a statement in an interview that was interesting.
He was talking real tough.
He was talking real tough. There was a video that came out, Scottie Scheffler talking to the police after being read his Miranda rights. I think people generally know about this Miranda case that the police have to read you your rights, tell you that you have a right to remain silent, a right to an attorney. After they read you those rights, if you do make a statement to them, it can be used against you and will very likely be used against you.
Yeah.
So,
you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. And so I make sure to tell them that because a lot of people focus on the can, but not the will. And there are instances where people might say something according to their perception and recollection, but let's say that they're wrong. They saw things different. They thought the light was green, but it was actually red or whatever. And then they look like they're lying. And now they have a statement on record that the police will certainly use against them that portrays them as being untruthful, which then a waterfall of issues could potentially come from that, especially if you're talking about criminal liability. But also, cops will purposely put you in a situation where you waive your rights. And I guess I'm on my face. Oh, I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Where you'll waive your rights and then they'll get chummy with you and they'll get you to speak. And when you speak, you ruin your case. As a prosecutor, probably 65 to 85% of my cases were made on defendant statements.
So let's talk about Miranda. Maybe not a lot of people realize you have a Bill of Rights, you know, the Constitution and the first 10 amendments to that Constitution are the Bill of Rights. Miranda was a case in front of the Supreme Court that determined that police officers everywhere or anyone kind of representing the state and maybe a criminal violation, they have to explain you those rights, and that's why they have to read this script to you. So the Supreme Court comes in and kind of clarifies the law and says, hey, there are rights that the citizens do enjoy And it's kind of a case of you have a big individual like the federal government, state government, and you have more of a simple person who might not understand the law. So in weighing those rights between, hey, this big government and a small individual, to put them on more of a level playing field, they have to read you these rights when you're being arrested so you don't make any statements to self-incriminate.
But as with everything in the law, once you get to the rule, there's exceptions and pre-qualifications that are required in order to trigger the rule, et cetera, et cetera. So with Miranda, some of the things that are important to note is that you have to be in a situation that they call custodial interrogation. So it can't just be the cops asking you questions on the street. You have to be in a situation where a reasonable person would not feel free to leave. And so let's use this room as the example. If I'm the cop and you two are the defendants, the potential defendants, and for the people watching, all 12 of you, we thank you. For the people watching, the door's on that side, right? It's to their backs. It's more of a reasonableness situation to think that you are free to leave. You could get up and go. I'm not in your way. I'm not, unless I was being aggressive or I outright said, hey, you can't leave. I'm a police officer. You have to stay here. Now, if you switch the script a little bit and you two are the police officers and I'm the defendant stuck in a room and the door's behind you, it's a sliding scale, right? So you get to that point where, okay, he's in custody, even if they haven't placed him in custody, right? Would a reasonable person feel free to leave the room and break the communication at that point? If the answer is no, and you're just doing what you're doing right now, sitting there quietly staring at me without blinking or breathing, then that's not interrogation, right? So if I just start running at the mouth, you didn't ask me a question. It's obviously some gray area at that point, but you're getting into what they call an excited utterance or something of that nature where the person just spontaneous utterance, not excited. I'm thinking of hearsay objection or exceptions. But it's a spontaneous utterance and the police can't really be held responsible for you.
Just saying,
Something.
if they show up and say, I shot him.
Yep.
That would be admissible in court.
Correct. It's also a statement against interest. There's so many different things. But the main thing here is that Miranda, yes, they have to give you warnings, but it's not absolute, as with anything. If a cop's walking past you on a street and he's like, hey, Shane, how's it going? What'd you do today? And you're like, oh, I killed my dog or whatever. I don't know why. You don't even have a dog. That's not going to be a Miranda situation.
So any negative comments we get on our YouTube when we go into too many details, I guess all of these cases, there are so many facts that matter.
Correct.
And every single fact comes into play and we have to know every single one. And every single instance of an interaction with a police officer is different than the other.
Correct.
All the facts are going to be different.
Yep.
It's a matter of measurements, how big is the room? How far away is a police officer? Everything comes into play.
What's his tone? What's his demeanor? What has he been saying beforehand? Did you invite him in? Did he walk in on his own? And so you have to think of it from the perspective of each one of these little things, these little bitty details can completely change the analysis. And so, yes, there are going to be situations where two situations are in fact the same, but the vast majority of the situations are just a little different. So you take the rule and you apply it using the facts you have to try and fit your position. Obviously, as a defense attorney, my position is that, hey, this statement was made contrary to the rules in Miranda and it should be suppressed. Especially, as usually happens, stop doing this, guys, when my defendants say something that they shouldn't say. Whether that be, I bought the drugs earlier today, whatever.
They're not mine. I just got them.
Yeah, I just picked up the bag randomly. I didn't know that there was a gun in it.
Anything you say, you are just confirming that you have possession. They might not have been able to prove possession in that instance, and then you just admitted it. So that's an element that we could have fought that now we can't.
Yeah, and that's the way this all works. It's kind of like a table, right? A table has 4 legs, 5 legs, whatever. If you knock one down on a 4-leg table, it's probably going to fall over. That's the way criminal law works as well. Each charge has elements. And if you can eliminate one of the elements, then they can't sustain the charge, right? Murder, intentional killing, another human being, malice aforethought, right? So if you can make it not intentional, it's suddenly not murder anymore, right? It's something else or potentially nothing, right? I'm making something up here. I'm asleep. I'm a really crazy sleeper. I flail my arms around. I keep my firearm on my nightstand and I don't have it in a holster. Not a good idea. I roll to the side, flail, my hand hits the weapon, it goes off. You're in the next room, bullet goes through the wall, hits you in the head and kills you. Okay. Did my hand hit the gun? Yeah. Could I have done it intentionally if I was unconscious? No. Right? You potentially, for the internet keyboard lawyers out there, you could make the argument that if I know that I have this problem and I put the gun within arm's reach, maybe we're getting into some realms there, but that would, I think, fall into the line of recklessness. Still, it can't be intentional when you're unconscious, right?
Sure.
The point being with all of that is that this is what we do. When you have a charge and there are elements, a lot of times one or more of the elements are already met because of the observations of the police officer. And it's really hard to get around that. But the easiest thing to do and the thing that you can protect yourself the absolute most is just shut up. I know that people want to, when they're in the situation, talk. I've personally been in that situation when I was a kid, hanging around with kids I shouldn't have. And even as an adult, being in places I shouldn't have. There's pretty much a theme in my life. I go dumb places. But you're never going to help yourself. They say, oh, we're going to help you. No, they're not. And then another fun fact, police can lie to you. They're allowed to do that to get you to say things. And that actually kind of ties in to the article that I read that I want to ask you questions about.
Can I add a quote?
Go for it.
I love this quote. It is better to keep silent and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubts.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Just shut up. And there's actually some attorneys out of California that have a really funny, they have like I think it's a podcast, or they did it on Instagram Reels, like lives or whatever. I believe they're called the Pot Brothers at Law. Hilarious guys and brilliant. I mean, their marketing is great and they're actually completely accurate. And they call it Shut the F Up Friday. And that's the whole thing. They have like a script that says, this is what you do when interacting with the police. Am I being detained? If I'm being detained, et cetera, et cetera. But the very last thing you do is you shut the F up and you stop talking. And that'll help you 100 out of 100 times.
And demand to have your attorney present.
Yes, Fifth and Sixth Amendment. Okay, so this is a situation. And one of the questions I want you to think about is, where did this occur? I'm not going to tell you where it happened. And that could be in this
Florida.
Country. Well, Florida's a fair guess. Anytime something crazy happens. Okay, so one night, this guy and his dad, who's 71, they live together, are having an argument about renovations that are happening in the house. The house is a mess. They're remodeling, whatever. Dad decides to leave the house at about 10 o'clock to go for a walk with the family dog. A few minutes later, dog comes back without the dad. So then the son, who's an adult, like you're talking an adult son because the dad's 71.
Sure.
He calls the cops. Within hours, he is in an interrogation room. The cops did not believe him. Later, when they were talking about it, they said that he seemed distracted and unconcerned during the 911 call, and that the dad's cell phone and wallet were still at the house. Again, the house was in disarray. So they believed that was a sign of a struggle. So they get him in the interrogation room. And this is according to court records from a news site. The detectives told the guy that his dad was dead, that they had received his body, and it now, quote, wore a toe tag at the morgue. They said they had evidence that the guy killed his father and that he should just admit it, the records show. He insisted that he didn't remember killing anyone, but the detectives told him that the human mind often tries to suppress troubling memories. At one point during the interrogation, the investigators even brought his pet Labrador retriever, Margosha, and said that they were going to have it euthanized as a stray. They brought it into the room so he could say goodbye. And this is a direct quote. Okay, your dog's gone now. Forget about it. And there's actually a picture. I'll see if I can zoom in on this thing. Of the interrogation room. And that poor guy is laying on the ground hugging his dogs. And I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's awful. Hugging his dog before the cops are going to kill it. They're going to euthanize it. Let's see. What's the next quote? Quote from the cops. How can you sit there? How can you sit there and Say you don't know what happened, and your dog is sitting there looking at you, knowing that you killed your dad. Look at your dog. She knows because she's been walking through all the blood. Finally, the guy breaks down and confessed. He said he stabbed his father multiple times with a pair of scissors, and that his dad had hit him in the head with a beer bottle. Keep in mind, this interrogation process lasts 17 hours. He then is very distraught, obviously. He pulls the drawstring from his shorts and tries to hang himself in the interrogation room. But as you saw there, it's benches. There's not really a lot of room, so it probably wasn't a risk. But this guy's just stressed out. And I'm going to zoom in on one more picture that kind of illustrates what's going on here. This is him in the middle of meeting with the cops, literally like trying to rip at his shirt. Apparently this dude was just beside himself, as you know, it makes sense. So turns out his dad was totally fine.
Right.
Not dead, completely alive. He wasn't even missing. He had gone to the Los Angeles International Dang it.
California.
California.
LA.
He went to the airport to get a flight to see his daughter. Here's the craziest thing. Well, it's one of the craziest things. Once the police figure it out, they don't tell him. And then they got a search warrant to search his house because they believed that he had harmed somebody in the house because there was signs of a struggle.
What judge signed that?
I don't know. So what city in California do you think it was in?
You told me that he was going to LAX, so I don't know.
You want to guess?
Yeah, Riverside?
No, Fontana.
Oh.
But still, when you read this thing, you don't think, oh, that could happen in like, and I don't know, whatever. I'm from a non-proper place. So like, you don't think, oh, that happened in a proper city where you've got professionals, right? You have a county budget that you should be able to hire good law enforcement. So, okay.
So you tried to surprise me with this. I had seen this already.
Oh,
I knew about this one, and as you're talking about it, I knew most of the details, not all the minor details. But it just reminds me of a new Netflix series, American Nightmare, that we talked about before as well.
Jeez.
Which, if we'll give a little synopsis, but it's a boyfriend and girlfriend who live together, and they're both tied up at night. Ton of lights. Guy has a gun that he brandishes, ties them both up, and takes the girlfriend.
And he drugged him. So he gave the boyfriend some kind of like Benadryl or something, like a high dose of it that made it to where he was loopy. I don't know. When I take Benadryl, which I never do, it messes me up.
And then the boyfriend finally calls the police.
Once he gets untied.
And he is suspect numero uno. Suspect
that
number
means
one.
number one.
So we're here in Las Vegas, which is in Spanish, and our state name, Nevada, is also Espanol. So,
and for those of you not in a Spanish area, we want to make sure that everybody understands us.
Las Vegas. So we live in the meadows, snow-capped is what Las Vegas and Nevada mean.
Yep.
So in the TV show, he's suspect number one. They're interrogating him. There's clips from the interrogation. The cop lies to him and says, "We know you killed her. Where is she?" He's thinking, man, I was drugged up. I was blindfolded. This is insane. Find her. I just want you to find her. She's been kidnapped. He was aware that she was kidnapped, not just missing, I guess. And so, man, the police, it makes you look different at police investigations. Obviously, they're there to help, and he trusted that they were there to help, and they did not look for her at all. They just zoned in on him. Mm-hmm. Although there weren't many leads, there wasn't much information to go off of, but
sure,
there should have been some other response. The one you're telling me about recently is just unfathomable.
I don't remember the date on this. So
I saw it in the news recently, so I know it
was published May 23rd.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is recent.
This is
okay.
within the last week.
So quick question before we get back to the show. What do you think happens in a case like that? Like, what do you see hearing that fact pattern? Do you see any sorts of claims or causes of action that the person might have?
Oh, for sure. In this American Nightmare, as well as the case you're telling me, you can have a claim against the government when they violate your rights, when they should be protecting people. You know, you have a Fourth Amendment right against improper searches and seizures. So when they violate those kind of rights, you have a right to private, you have all these rights inalienable, which means cannot be taken away, you know, by anyone, including the government, the US government, other countries might, but you have these rights when they're violated. So there is a statute, there is a US federal law that we often call 1983, which is not a year, but it is a number of a statute. And it says that you can have a claim against a person. It reads specifically that if a person deprives someone of rights, you can have a claim against them. So there are actors, specific people in this instance that you're describing that have violated rights. They went beyond. They're allowed to investigate, but at some point, especially this one you're telling me, where they found out that the father was fine. Obviously, the son just called it in to see where his father was. He was worried about him. He's missing. And I want to understand how the dog got back and he ended up at the airport. Did he just leave him in the front door and left the door open? Something, you know, there could be an explanation.
I mean, it said that they were fighting, so maybe he thinks, oh, I'm going to go for a walk. And then once he gets outside, he's like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to go to my daughter's house or whatever. But this is the one thing here. It says, and I didn't read this, it says that once he gets back, the police took him to the Fontana police station. And at that point, they got the warrant to again search the house for evidence that he had assaulted a, quote, unknown victim after the dad shows up.
Why?
I don't know.
So this seems like...
and he was held for a 3-day psych hold after he tried to kill himself.
Yeah, this is unreasonable search and seizure in my mind. He's obviously distraught about being questioned. You know, in there so long, being lied to that his dad is dead. They're allowed to lie to you to try and elicit a confession, but they just kept holding him. They probably Mirandized him, right? He was probably read his rights. So,
but they also probably didn't.
But they can tell you, I don't think you need an attorney, do you?
Yeah. They can say things like, well,
it would be easier to work with me.
You're innocent. So what do you need an attorney for?
You have nothing to hide. Look, let's work. We want to find your dad. Can you please help me?
Help me find your dad's dead body that you murdered with an axe.
And the question, you can see this in American Nightmare.
That's what it seems like, dude. And then
these videos are out in American Nightmare, and I would suggest to watch these to anyone because it is just incredible, and it'll make you look at things a little different. When we tell you, hey, don't talk to cops, it's, you know, they're seen as heroes,
and they are.
And they are.
In a lot of instances.
They are.
These
are just the worst case scenarios.
And here's the important part. They're human. They're only human. Just like me and you and Austin, there are cops who are always good, and then one day they do something stupid. There are cops who are always stupid, and some of the times they do something good. Like, what's that movie, Crash? And you got the one cop who's incredibly racist. He's on FTO with a newer officer, and he actually has an interaction with, I can't remember the actors' names, but he has an interaction with a black couple, and he does something incredibly racist to him. The FTO officer, and that's field training, the one who's the younger guy he's training, doesn't like it. They end up splitting up, and the whole movie is about how these people interact with each other in this city.
And he ends up shooting a black kid.
The FTO ends up shooting a black kid because
yeah.
he gets freaked out by what his training officer says. But at the end of the movie, the training officer ends up saving the lady who he assaulted prior because he felt her up during a frisk because her car got rolled over, because that interaction that they had with the husband and wife led to her and the husband getting in a fight, and then she drives off angry, wrecks the car, and is about to burn to death. And he climbs into the vehicle while it's about to catch fire and cuts her out. And I think that sort of illustrates in a, obviously it's a kind of exaggerated way, that these are just people. They have flaws. They do things good. They do things bad.
And some of these methods that they've used before have got the right people behind bars.
I don't know if I like saying that.
They have.
It's true, but the right people.
Well,
when you start making the distinction between the right people and the wrong people, it's like, I'm serious. And I know that right now what we're talking about is in a criminality context. Like, so there's universal and relative morality, right? Universal morality is something that everybody believes, regardless. You could pick somebody from China, from Russia, from Zimbabwe. It doesn't matter. We're all going to say, hey, this is probably something you don't do. There's the obvious incest taboo, right? Most cultures, the vast majority of them.
What state are you
except for
from?
Austin. I'm from Kansas, not Missouri. Relax. Anyway, most cultures would agree, right? But let's say, for example, corporal punishment in families, right? In the Western cultures, we have an opinion about what parents should do, what crosses the line between discipline and child abuse. And in other cultures, perhaps, that's not going to be the same. They're maybe a little bit more heavy-handed, and they would view you as a derelict parent for not disciplining your children the way that they do, right? So that's a universal morality. And in these situations with criminality,
You know what I mean by that, right?
yeah, I got you. We're talking about, so everybody can agree that stealing a candy bar from 7-Eleven is bad, but that it's not worth the death penalty, right? And that rape is one of the worst crimes you could do. So when we talk about the right people going to prison or getting caught, obviously we mean the people with the crimes that are objectively worse. But I don't know if I like the classification, just because there are these instances where, and I'm not going to look it up. There was one out of Oklahoma, and it's these false convictions where 25 years later, modern DNA evidence exonerates him, and it turns out he gets convicted because of dog hair. Now I'm going to look up the name.
No. I mean, going back to what we should be talking about is you can have a claim against the government for cases like this. This sounds like something that will lead to a case of a 1983 claim.
The article?
Yes.
It already did.
Oh, okay.
They reached a $900,000 settlement. And the whole reason that it was so low, because that was a low number, is because the guy basically just didn't want to go through the BS of a trial and all that. They had gotten into discovery. He did his deposition. And let's see, what did he say? He agreed to the settlement rather than take the case to trial out of a concern that a jury award could be overturned on appeal on grounds of qualified immunity for police. And generally that protects law enforcement officers unless they violate clearly established law arising from a case with nearly identical facts, according to the Legal Defense Fund. Yeah, it's because it's so bad that they haven't had a case like that.
Right. And in the time, I guess the police officers, when they're questioning initially, they don't know that the father is just absconded, right? I guess he just left the state. They don't know that. They're in good conscience asking these questions, really believing that this son had killed his father as, as suspect numero uno. Yeah. Facts always come out after that make things look better or worse.
And it's obviously also, hindsight is 20/20. But at the same time, it's just nutty to me that out of the entire realm of possibilities, the first thing you jump to, because somebody didn't sound the way you thought they ought to sound on a 911 call, he killed him. That's it. And then they zero in on that. And it's the same thing with American Nightmare. They actually talk about that, how the police got laser focused on this one idea and disregarded everything else. And they thought, it sounds so made up. It must be.
His story was
crazy.
It's
wild,
but it was true.
100%.
But they didn't know it was true. They thought he had just made up a wacky story,
right,
which is maybe the easier thing to believe in that
sure.
instance.
But the interesting thing with that one is once the girl shows up and corroborates his version of events, because before, we kind of are going back and forth between the cases here, but she gets away. Actually, she gets let go, if I remember the show correctly.
She got let go.
She shows up, tells them stuff. They let her go. Well, then rather than saying, okay, it must not have been him, they pivot, double down, and say it was both of you. You were involved too. And you cost us all this money by wasting our resources. And I think they were talking about making them, like suing them or fining them or something.
They were going to civil sue them for this kind of search because they thought that they had made it up for attention's sake, because the movie Gone Girl had just come out, and so it seemed like a replica of that. And so but they were two physical therapists. Why would they want to ruin their lives and careers over that. And who ended up being the person that kidnapped? Who was it?
Some random Marine who went to Harvard Law School.
A former Marine lawyer, huh?
Yeah.
Huh. Wow.
Weird. But yeah, he also got disbarred before that.
He had some instances, some weird.
He was a crazy person.
He had, yes, done some weird stuff before. There's usually signs that somebody's going to commit further crimes. And he ended up getting in prison for, kidnaps, multiple rapes. So
yeah, I think I think one of the crazy things that I remember from the show is that like while he had old girl tied up, he tries to do it again, but something goes wrong and it doesn't work. And that gets reported and that kind of gets swept under the rug again. Like the cops are just like, meh, disregard.
Yep.
This isn't real.
yeah.
It's like, what am I going to do? Roll to disbelieve? I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
D&D, baby.
Yeah,
D&D.
Nerd stuff. So yeah, that all kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier. In all these instances, these people undoubtedly were at least on some level probably told, hey, you can get up and go whenever you want. And if you, when they read them the card, it says if you ask to have no further questions asked of you, the questioning will be stopped. But the thing is, you have to unequivocally invoke your rights, which means, am I free to go or am I being detained? If free to go, thank you for your time. See you later. Get out of there. Go home. Do whatever you want to do. And if you're being detained, I don't want you to ask me any more questions, and I want my lawyer. And it needs to be in no uncertain terms. It can't be like, well, it'd be real great if you guys would stop, interrogating me for 24 hours. That's not an unequivocal invocation of rights. It has to be black and white. I demand. And you can even say that. You can say, I demand you stop asking me questions, and I demand you give me my lawyer. And it's funny because in all these interrogation videos I've ever seen, or when I was a prosecutor, and you're watching it build, because some of these detectives are artful. At the office that I was at, we had one guy who, even with the sheriff's office, when they had a child case, like a pedophile case or anything like that, they would call this dude from the local police department. He would come over and question them because he was an expert at it. He was just very good at getting the trust of these dudes and getting them to just spill the beans. So there are times you watch him working, he's building it, and you're thinking, okay, the dam's about to bust. This guy's going to tell us, where this person is, where they did this, whatever. And then all of a sudden a light bulb goes off in their head and they're like, nope, I don't want you to ask me any more questions. I want my attorney. Gets up, walks out immediately. You'll see it that way.
In the American Nightmare show, the guy being interrogated, the boyfriend, I'm pretty sure he said the words, I think I need a lawyer. Just, I think I need a lawyer. But the FBI agent at that time did respect that. That's kind of a question. That's a wavering.
It's a questionable.
I would say, don't say I think, because there is some doubt there. It has to be unequivocal, right? Unequivocal.
Yes.
All right.
You need to do it.
Demand an attorney.
I mean, and you obviously, I agree with the Pop Brothers at Law on this one. I think you always ought to be respectful to the police when you're invoking your rights. I know sometimes it's an emotionally charged situation and you want to tell them just to F off, but part of communication is sending a message that the recipient wants to hear and will listen to, and then will acquiesce. And you're going to get a lot more flies with honey than vinegar, so they say.
Have you ever had Miranda rights read to you?
How many times? Yes.
Do they, when they read Miranda rights, are they, making sure you understand? Do they pause and say, "Did you get that?"
Thinking of no. I've never had them ask me, "Do I get that?" In
or
between,
is it just
at the end,
monotonous reading?
At the end, they ask me if I understand, and you say yes or no. It's kind of like admonitions in a deposition. You can either go one at a time, or you can say, "All right, I'm going to ask a few things. Do you understand all that?" Especially things that are related, and it's not very long. It's like 8 sentences or something like that. And so they ask me at the end, and then they start asking questions. I have seen instances where somebody has a question and they say, well, what does this mean? And they'll explain it. But the other thing that I've seen is the cops get real short at that point because they're chomping at the bit to ask these questions. They've got something they need to figure out. Generally, they're interacting with this person for a reason that's not fun, right? They're not just there because they're giving away free Reese's Pieces and they want to make sure this guy can come, right? They're there because a crime occurred, someone was victimized, perhaps someone's dead, a crash happened, whatever, right? There's a ton of bad reasons that they're there. And so it does seem that they do get a little short whenever you get people who are too questiony. So Shane screwed us up because he has normal bodily functions and chooses to pee in the middle of a podcast. But the main thing here is that the police have a job and they're searching for a way to get to a goal. The goal is finding out who did thing A, B, or C. And this is obviously interactions when you're dealing with criminal cases, criminal situations.
And our individual rights just get in the way of that.
They do.
Darn it.
They can, right? And what you have to do to protect yourself is just to make sure that you exercise your rights. I'm not saying be obstinate. I'm not saying fight cops. I'm not saying be disrespectful. None of that. I'm saying just invoke your rights unequivocally so that you don't end up in a situation that you shouldn't be in.
And a lawyer will help you communicate to the cops in the right way. There might be information that helps them get to the goal of getting the right person, but a lawyer will help you communicate that to them. And if they're zeroed in on you, they're not looking at other people.
I have a example personally. I just got that case dismissed in Boulder City where the gal got her credit card and her Sam's Club card stolen. She reports the credit card stolen to Discover. Immediately, the Discover card and the Sam's Club card go to Sam's Club with whoever stole it out of her vehicle, or she dropped it next to the vehicle. I can't remember which. There's a charge on there from the Sam's Club that Discover kicked back to her because she'd already reported it. Well, then that Sam's Club card is used, pick a number, 120 times from here to Florida. Well, and 8 of those times are in Boulder City with another wallet that was stolen out of another vehicle. What do? They go and they get the surveillance footage. It's some younger looking gal who's obviously shorter because of where she sits in proportion to the shopping cart, but Hispanic. My gal's Hispanic, my client, and she's older. She's in her 40s. So even when you're looking at this picture, and when I talked to the prosecutor, which we had to go all the way to preliminary hearing on this, I presented them the evidence. Like she brought me printouts from her job showing that she was at work when 45 of the 70 some transactions with her Sam's Club card from here to Florida were taken, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just a mountain of evidence. She did a great job presenting, hey, this is what they're saying, but here's where I was. We had to go all the way to the prelim. And then, only after he dismissed it, did the prosecutor actually look at the picture and say, you're right, she is shorter. And I'm sitting here thinking, then why are we here? You know, and this is a situation where the cops were like, oh, it was her card, using her Sam's Club card, Hispanic gal. She's a Hispanic gal. Must be you.
But the judge dismissed it because the evidence wasn't sufficient, right?
Yeah, the case got dismissed, yes. But it's insane that we even got there because I'd been telling them this for months, and I provided the prosecution with copies of all this. I obviously didn't get to talk to the police officers because this all happened after the fact, right? And she even told them, this is the situation where she was forthcoming with the information and showed them these things, and they were like, no, you. It's nuts. It's crazy.
Zeroed in on a specific person.
To get her as the defendant. Okay, so...
But we get dismissals.
Sometimes.
I didn't guarantee a dismissal. I just
Right.
said we do get them.
And as with anything, if you have specific questions regarding criminal law and you exist in a state other than Nevada and Kansas, ask an attorney who's licensed in that state. If you exist in the state of Nevada and or Kansas and have questions with criminal law or other matters, you can call me, and I'm happy to try and answer them.
How many times do clients come to us and give us just the very limited set of facts and say, hey, what's going to happen?
Oh, man, every time. Every single time.
And we talked before, every single fact matters. We're going to... When we talk to you, we're not trying to annoy you. We ask questions. We ask questions. And you're thinking, why are you asking me all these questions?
Yeah.
I told you everything. Well, I'm sorry. Like, we know the law a little bit better than you on some things.
And
all
I
these
certainly
facts
know what matters, right? And if I'm asking a question about random things that seem inane to you, I'm doing it for a reason. I'm not just trying to hear you speak.
So that's another reason why we can't give general blanket advice, because all of these things matter. There's specific details. There are generic things. Hey, don't commit crimes. I'll say that, one more time. But you might be accused of a crime even if you didn't commit any crimes. There are people that get arrested for things they didn't do all the time. So be prepared. Have, these rules in your back pocket. Ask for an attorney. You can be appointed a public defender even for those instances. You have the right to an attorney. So.
Correct. So in the realm of crazy situations involving cops, there's another article. Oh, I want to give the shout out to the attorney in Oklahoma who I was talking with about, the podcast and the various cases. Is this where I shout out her TikTok and stuff, right? Yeah. Alyssa King, she and I went to law school together. She does insurance defense, so she's on the other side of the ball when it comes to personal injury. It's Alyssa_King09, and I believe that's her Instagram. And then her TikTok is Alyssa King79. She was not born in either of those years. But yeah, she happened to find these and was like, oh, these are great stories. These will be ones that would be worth talking about. And she was absolutely right, because I'd never seen the one about the guy in Fontana. So this one, and I'm just gonna, there's no like hiding anything here. I'll just read the title of it. Distressing video shows Missouri cop gunned down lost 13-pound deaf and blind dog. Quote, what am I supposed to do? Again, not funny as a dog owner. And then
Is that your response to trauma? Laughing?
Yes.
Because that's mine too.
Absolutely. You've known me long enough to know that I make all of the horrible things that have ever happened in my life into a joke.
Because people look at you, why are you laughing?
Yeah.
I feel awkward, so I'm laughing. I'm sorry.
It's better than crying. So this is the dog. It's one of those little crusty eye dogs, kind of, I think. But I believe it was a mixed dog. 13
Weighs
pounds.
about, 13.
13
I was
pounds.
going to say 2.
No, much bigger than that, but still. So the video is about 5 minutes long. I watched it. It shows the officer with a catch pole. And a catch pole is the thing that they use that it has like a rope that fits in through it, and you're able to grab one end and pull it tight so that the loop at the end of the stick will cinch down around the dog's head so that they can keep them at a distance so they don't get bit, but also so they can control them without hurting the dog and without hurting themselves, presumably.
Like a lasso.
Sort of like a lasso. And in the video, it's all on body cam. So the guy gets to the scene. The neighbor's dog had gotten out and is walking around. Somebody called it in as a stray dog. It's like a well-to-do sort of neighborhood, standard Missouri, green grass.
I'm threatened by that dog already. Just
Obviously.
13 pounds?
13 pounds.
I'm threatened.
Pretty big. So the cop is there for about 3 minutes before he shoots it. And there's nobody else around.
3 minutes is a sufficient amount of time before shooting a dog that's non-compliant.
No, it's not. Shane's opinions do not reflect the opinions of Cox and Wilson PLLC. That's what I'll say.
Sarcasm. Sorry.
Yeah, well, some people don't understand that. So the dog is pretty playful. He's turning his head around whenever he notices, because he's deaf and blind, so he goes off touch and smell, right? Well, once he feels the catch collar on him, he's like, hey, is somebody gonna pet me? Where are we at here? And the cop keeps getting the lasso around the dog's head, and the dog just keeps moving his head. Every time he puts the lasso back on the dog, he never growls, bares his teeth, barks, doesn't do anything. He's literally just kind of walking in circles, and you can tell that he doesn't know where he's going, but he's walking just fine. The comment that the officer made was that he thought that the dog might be sick. Oh, and it's a Shih Tzu mix. So that's,
The dog's resisting.
Ugh. Yes. So he's sitting there for 2 or 3 minutes trying to get control of the dog. And then at the end of it, he shoots it twice. And
Once wasn't enough, right?
I'm not defending him. However, once you shoot the dog, if it's not dead, you don't want it to sit there and suffer. You've already done damage. You might as well.
Oh, gosh.
I'm not defending him, man, but that's what it's.
Yeah, why shoot it at all?
No, for sure. He shouldn't have shot it. Absolutely not. And his whole thing was the police department said, quote, believing the dog to be severely injured or infected with rabies, and as the officer feared being bitten and being infected with rabies, he felt this was the only option, was to put the animal down. And then days later, the city issued another statement emphasizing the officer acted within his authority based on the information available to him at the time to protect against possible injury to citizens from where it appeared to be injured, sick, and abandoned dog.
Do city police departments ever come out right after and say, oh, yeah, no, he screwed up? Like,
Yeah. Well, sometimes.
Not very often.
The thing that I don't get is like, I mean, I can kind of see the dog sort of wiggling around or whatever, and it does look a little weird, but he didn't do anything aggressive. Like he was kind of smiling.
Was he a danger to anyone? Was that dog a danger to anyone?
There was nobody around in the video. I'm assuming the person called it in because they just wanted to make sure that somebody got their dog back. It wasn't a situation like, oh, this dog attacked me, or there's a Rottweiler running down the street that weighs 95 pounds and my 5-year-old's out in the front yard. Like I said, it's big, man. If you get bit by that dog and get rabies from it, you should have stayed away from his mouth.
Rest in peace, Harambe.
Harambe died for our sins. First off, do not make fun of him. But this dog's name was Teddy.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah. So in a situation like that, do we have a 1983 claim there?
Well, there's not a violation against a person there.
Right. But it's a violation against the person's tangible property.
It is their property.
So
I don't know what state this...
It's Missouri. Is it conversion of dog?
Well, here in Nevada, a dog can only be valued at the value. It's not like a human life. There's no pain and suffering element to losing a dog here. It's just, what is that dog worth? It's like a car.
And you're talking specific monetary. What's the Kelly Blue Book on the Shih Tzu mix?
Yes. What could you sell this dog for? There's no emotional. If you
$20, Austin says.
If you lose a dog, if somebody hits your dog with a car, you could only make a claim for the number value
Correct.
of that dog. So I don't know what the case is in Missouri, you said. If there
Missouri.
is, some kind of emotional element for that, that's obviously could help things for them. But in Nevada, that'd be a very tough one. I mean, it just doesn't seem like the juice would be worth the squeeze there.
Sure. Because in all these cases, you have to have damages. And although no one's debating that this dude probably has a hole in him that he's never going to fill, having his dog taken from him that way, but you have to be able to quantify it. Because unfortunately, and I use this with my clients all the time when we're talking about personal injury cases, there's no Harry Potter wand. They can't just, you win, and so they're going to miracle your back better, or they're going to miracle this thing not having been done to you. The only way they can compensate you, I call it, it's not really a legal fiction, but I'm like, it kind of is, because they're giving you money in these instances in exchange for the suffering that you went through. But the money doesn't equal lack of pain. The money is just simply saying, hey, we know that you got hurt, whether it be emotional, physical, or whatever. This is what society has created as a mechanism to compensate you.
So here's enough money to go to Puerto Rico for a week.
It's hard to be sad on a jet ski.
Yeah.
They are fun.
It is very,
Chili's?
very hard to be. I've never been sad eating unlimited chips and salsa at a Mexican restaurant.
Yeah, but what if your back hurts or your jaw's wired shut?
Then I can't eat the chips and salsa?
You're not happy anymore.
Give me something else then.
So yeah, it's a crazy situation, and I mean, this was pointed out to me whenever one of our employees looked at this, and I thought the same thing. I like to think that I'm going to have a cool head, because I can give 1,000,001 good ideas about how to interact with police, but you put me in that situation, and that cop shoots my dog. If he shot Kina, I'm going to prison. It's what's going to happen. I'm going to go to prison. Absolutely.
So we need to change the laws here because you love your dog.
I do. She's the best dog I've ever had. She's the smartest dog. And also you've been around her. She wouldn't hurt anybody. The problem that cop would have if he showed up and she was walking around is as soon as she saw him, she would come over him to try to get him to pet her.
Lick him to death.
She would lick him. But she's also a husky wolf mix. Far more imposing looking than Teddy. So what I'm guessing would happen in that instance is that Kina would run over to the cop the way that she does. She's very athletic. She's agile. She's going, oh, friend. And she's going to run at him like friends obviously want to be ran at. And he's going to gun her down on the way. And then something real bad's going to happen.
All right.
Anyway.
We're going to segue here.
Let's not do that. Let's not go there.
We're going to segue here. I have a topic. Maybe everybody knows what Reddit is. There's a subreddit called Lawyer Talk, and it is a group where lawyers make comments. If you're not a lawyer, Get out of
out.
there. You can't ask for legal advice there. This is only lawyers about their experiences.
Is it kind of like this? Like they're just hemming and hawing, or are they saying like legal stuff?
They talk about legal stuff, but more experiences that, talking about depositions, hearings, kind of the stuff we go through that people can't relate to.
Sure.
I saw an awesome comment from somebody, and this just goes into everything we've been talking about. Got into a car accident on my way back to work from court today. After exchanging insurance, the police arrived and spoke with us. Against the advice I would otherwise give to all my clients, I was fairly open about what happened and ended up with a moving citation for doing so. Not a big deal, honestly, but just feel dumb for doing something I regularly tell people not to do, especially doing criminal defense and 1983 work. I'm a fairly young/new attorney, 25 male, 7 months in. So I'm trying to chalk this up to a live and learn experience. Anyone else feel like they've gone against their own advice before?
Yes.
The comments came in and said, if it's a minor car accident, explain yourself to the police. That's fine.
Well, you kind of have to.
You
At
have
some
to.
level, you have to explain, hey, this is what happened.
Otherwise, they're going to take the other person's word.
Correct.
Right.
And especially if it's a situation where you're not at fault, they run the light, they didn't come to a complete stop or whatever, they merged into you have to at least put something on paper. But the issue you run into is while they're doing the fact gathering, if one of the facts that you give them is that you violated whatever rule of the road, 484B in the state of Nevada, okay, cool. Now I have those elements met, and this is your citation, dude. Because he's just there and he's impartially enforcing the law.
We've read a lot of traffic accident reports in our day.
Yeah.
Cops seem to hate having to respond to these. They would rather do other things than be responding to car accidents. So they don't put too much time and effort into it. But if you make a statement, they're going to make a conclusion based on that. And like this young lawyer said, all of his advice would say, simple comments. Don't just start stream of consciousness talking.
Correct.
Listen carefully to questions.
Answer only the question asked of you.
Answer the question asked of you.
And then shut the F up.
Shut the F up Friday.
Shut it. Austin, do that forever from now on.
So I was in a car accident this morning. I got rear-ended.
There are no such things as accidents, only actions with unintended consequences. You were in a collision.
I was rear-ended this morning, and I'm
How are you feeling?
annoyed. Not feeling 100%, but it's only a couple hours after, and my car's messed up. So
We ripped the bumper off in the back parking lot of our law firm. Lucky for me, I have a truck, so I have a socket set with me pretty much all the time. We were able to pull it off. It was easy.
we pulled it off.
And I didn't even get my shirt dirty.
Got some ties and got it tied down. My car is
He
beeping.
he has a bungee cord, not ties. It's funny.
Anyway, I didn't follow advice that I would give to clients in car accident cases. Everybody says, oh, yeah, make sure to wait for the police, get everything recorded.
Sure.
I grew impatient, and I said, I'm leaving. I don't have time for this.
Why did it take long for them to get there?
Why would it have? I didn't wait
Sure.
for him at all.
Oh, you didn't grow impatient. You
No.
I'm leaving.
I grew impatient the second it happened.
Wait, what? You mean that this is three seconds? I'm out. I'm leaving.
Oh, yeah, I didn't. I was going to Las Vegas Metro headquarters. Actually, we were just around the corner from it. I got hit into a vehicle in front of me, a Metro employee who also is an attorney, that she told me.
Lovely. What did she do? Did she hang out or did she go?
She went right after me too. Yeah, it was very not noticeable in the front. I barely touched her in the
but
front.
enough that you could feel it. But you did get pancaked.
Yes, in the back part of my vehicle was quite.
I would call
visually
it moderate damage,
Moderate damage.
but significant enough that you can see it from 100 yards away.
Yeah.
Because you're missing the bottom half of your vehicle. Bumper's gone.
So I understand not listening to advice or, not doing.
Well, did you not listen, or were there circumstances outside your control that kind of dictated what you did?
My impatience dictated that, and the fact that I knew that there was another person in front of me that was going to act as a witness, and
Sure.
and corroborate my story. I said, I don't have time to stick around. I got tons of things every day to deal with, and I was on my way.
As we all do.
As we all do. And
so is there a scenario, I suppose, where let's say that you don't have that witness, and let's say that she didn't rear end you like that. Let's say she hit you kind of at an angle.
Oh.
Do you stick around for the cops then?
Oh, yes. Or in Nevada, you can record another person, not over the phone, but in person, surreptitiously, secretly. I could have put my phone to record and talked to her about what happened and not told her.
Right.
If
is that one party? Is that what that means? One party consent?
One party consent. Only one of the two parties have to consent in person. On the phone, have to notify, have to tell them. In Nevada.
This conversation is being recorded for training and quality purposes.
That's enough. So I could have done that, but she knew what she had done. The car in front of me knew what she had done, so didn't need to do anything else, in my opinion. And I could have been wrong, because there are cases where someone will reverse into another.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a dash cam, that person could maybe change their story and say they rear-ended me.
Do the old switcheroo.
Did
you know that if you just stare at Austin, he gets incredibly uncomfortable?
I did not know that, because
I just figured that out.
You are always looking at him. He wants to be staring at you, because out of us, you're the handsome one.
That's false. I'm pink and weird looking. Anyway, so I think that we've all been there in a situation where, and to tie the personal injury side of this to the criminal side, facts matter, right? Changing out a few of the details changed whether or not you would have stuck around, or whether you would have tried to do something else. But here, because you understand these are the elements I need to meet, these are the boxes I need to check for the insurance company to be protected. Have I checked a significant enough number of them without the police report to go forward and be protected? And the answer to that question is yes. But how many car crash cases would you say estimate in the hundreds, like to every 100, 100, 200, 300? How many car crash cases have you worked on?
Oh, I mean, I've touched so many at different points. Yeah, like thousands. Yeah, over 1,000.
So you've got a fair amount of experience. It's fair to say.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so you know the things you need to do to, satisfy whatever burden you need at whatever level of the case that you're in, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So it's safe for you to do that, but that might not always be the case for somebody, right?
Might not. And I was really just thinking of, hey, I need to get somewhere. I'm good. I know what this is. I've dealt with this, and that might flip the script on me. But
you feel pretty safe.
I was rear-ended.
Sure. Third witness.
There's another car that will corroborate what I said. So
yeah,
I should be good.
But the point is that it's fact-based, and that not all reactions are always going to be the right reaction.
No, it is better to get a cop there, confirm the statement, because people can switch later, and they often do, but they can't change what they said to the police officer when the police officer writes down.
Correct.
And there is body-worn camera on almost all of our police reports we see. They're almost always on, and you can go and get those if there's instances where you need. But I didn't do that. I just left.
So I'm trying to think of situations where my clients have not followed my advice and it actually helped them. And so I'm curious, can you think of any of those where it's sort of a gotcha moment to us? Because we're not always right. Obviously I believe I'm always right, but sometimes other people don't. Reasonable minds could differ, and so could unreasonable ones. But I'm trying to think if there's ever a situation where they didn't follow the rules, and not following the rules helped them out. Talking to the cops, leaving. Obviously, if you get to my desk and it's a situation with police officers, there's probably been some charges lodged. So talking is not going to help you. It's only going to make it worse. But I'm trying to think in the civil context, because like when we go into depositions and stuff, we tell them the same sorts of things, right? Answer the question asked of you, be very specific and precise with your language. And the times where somebody has just flown off the handle, you know, because they're upset and, you know, they feel like they need to vindicate themselves, in this situation. And then they just speak. And then they end up saying something that's not good.
It's usually bad.
I don't think I have one.
I can't think of one, and I'm trying.
I was hoping
promise.
to, right?
I don't know. Like, I've been deposed before, and
Why?
I worked at a company, and I was the 30B6 representative.
What's 30B6 representative?
That
Shane?
I was the appointed person who knew about the facts that I was going to testify about for that business. So the company had appointed me to go be deposed because I knew about the material. They have to describe to you, corporation, what questions are we going to ask or what topics are we going to ask about, so they know who to send to that deposition. So I was sent to a deposition, and I hate to say it, but I think I just did a great job at the deposition because I take depositions, so I know, you know, I think I know what they're trying to ask, but we always tell people, listen to the question that's being asked you and answer it in the most simple way possible.
What are the 4 best answers somebody could give?
The 4 best answers, if possible, are yes, no, I don't recall at this moment, or I don't remember as I sit here today. Or you can say yes, no, I don't remember, I don't know.
Yes, no, I don't know, and I don't remember.
Yeah.
I try to simplify it for folks.
Right, but so I think I did a great job at being deposed and answering the question. I testified at trial on a case too, as a witness for this corporation, for this company, as you know, their 30B6 rep again. So it's because I can anticipate these things. I've been doing this for a while now. You know,
you sort of know where they're going.
I have enough experience where, you know, I've handled all sorts of cases. I've argued, you know, in front of just about every court. I was just appointed as an arbitrator too.
What's
so
an
I can
arbitrator?
arbitrate cases. An arbitrator, you hear about this in baseball sometimes. Baseball has like this special arbitration thing. So arbitrators are private judges or kind of appointed people that are usually attorneys, and they decide disputes between parties. So it's like doing an informal trial outside of a court, and an arbitrator acts as the judge and the jury of a case.
Anything else? Do they act as anything else?
I don't know.
No, they're not going to be the executioner.
No. they do not execute. Judge, jury, man, I'm way over
Missed
my head.
it. Too
They
fast.
act as the
Too
judge,
furious.
judge and jury.
Too fast for y'all.
Here in Clark County, cases that are under a value of $50,000, most cases under a value of $50,000, have to go to arbitration.
It's in the statute, right?
It's rules, not statutes, but minor difference. But
Is it EDCR then?
yeah, there's Nevada. It depends on the county. The county can set up certain things. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that you have to have a showing to prove you have an exemption from arbitration that you file to prove that the case value is over $50,000.
So, yes.
Right, but I'm just trying to think. I can't remember chapter and verse here.
There's
it's like in
There's Nevada rules of arbitration.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
RAP.
The
NRAP?
NAR, I think.
NAR.
NAR.
Oh, NRAP is Nevada Rules of Appellate Procedure.
Correct.
That's right.
Correct.
Ugh, so many acronyms.
There's so many rules.
Why are there so many rules?
So many acronyms to know. That's why don't be a pro se litigant, right?
Don't. Yes. This ties it back into it. Like, so the thing that you learn in law school that, you know, people talk about is how to think like a lawyer. And the big thing you learn is how to research. And I believe one of the trolls mentioned something about not knowing how to research.
I didn't know every single fact about Scottie Scheffler's arrest.
Why not?
And I just...
Why didn't you?
We were
How
setting...
dare you?
I'm so sorry. We were just setting it up to generically talk about how to apply law in that instance, because we deal with specific criminal defendants. And when we research their cases. We get into it with them and we ask them questions. When I give you a prompt on a professional golfer's case, man, I'm sorry that I didn't know that he tied for 8th instead of getting 20th. The tournament was delayed because of weather and because of this death. Rip, rest in peace,
That does
to
suck.
this
That
guy.
guy got ran over.
They didn't hold it back for him. Or,
I can't-
or did they? Oh, come on.
You think you know a person, right?
I didn't research that. So don't hire us because I did not look into Scottie Scheffler's case
Please
enough.
stop talking.
Because I wasn't doing work and representing my clients in my other time.
Right, but the important part is that you can see that we know how to analyze the cases, and that's the next thing that I was going to say. You learn how to think, and that's the analysis. But learning to research and knowing where to go to find the things is the most important part. Because as we were just talking about, there's all these different rules and how they tie into each other. Like when I said EDCR, what that means is 8th Judicial District Court Rule, and that's the district that we're in here in Clark County, Nevada. And so you have the 8th Judicial District Court Rule 2.20 for motion filing. If you want to file a motion or a response in the 8th Judicial District Court, you have to follow those rules. Well, you also have the Nevada Rules of Civil Procedure that you have to follow. Probably specifically, it's 32, right?
You're just making up stuff now?
No, I truly think it might be 32 for
motions?
for motions. I could be wrong. Wait. Damn it, that's depositions. I'm wrong. Whatever. There is an NRCP for motions. I'll find it.
What every good attorney knows is that if you ever lose a case, you have to blame the right person.
Yes, duh.
And if your podcast ever gets bad comments, it's because this specific comment that says we need a better producer. So
Yeah. What's going on here?
this
That producer has gotten you a viral clip on TikTok, and then
Was it viral though? Or are you guys just calling it viral?
it's 30,000. That's good.
That's not viral though. You said 1 million. Hold on. Math is not my strong suit. Yeah, 30,000 is way less than 1 million, Austin.
And then on YouTube, you guys have multiple shorts that are over 10,000.
Bleep, blah, bleep, blah, bleep.
I was a math major.
Rule 7.
30,000 depends on how you define the numbers. Is less than 1 million.
Nope. 30,000 in every sense of the numbers word is always less than 1 million.
Who was a math major? I was a math failure.
A math what?
Math failure. He's trying to be
Failure.
funny. It
Failure.
wasn't
I didn't
funny.
hear the word.
Kind of like your comedy. I about said commodity career. Comedy career.
D&D, he can count to 20.
I can count to 100, dude. I have a percentile dice.
What's the biggest sided dice that you have?
100.
Austin? You have 100 sided dice?
Yeah,
Nice.
same, dude. Don't
Do you have a tower?
No.
Is it leaning?
Dude. All right.
Leaning
let's-
tower of pizza.
We are going to segue into our listener question. Thank you for submitting so many listener questions. We can only pick one.
All of them.
So please, try again. If we didn't pick yours this week, submit another question, please, and we will get to you eventually. Hello, Tangled Rights. What's the funniest thing you've ever seen happen in a courtroom? And did you manage to keep a straight face?
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
You go ahead.
So I need to preface this with something we already talked about. Sometimes things that I think are funny are partially because they're very uncomfortable. Or it's, a difficult situation. Some people might not find this funny. It's definitely weird. So when I was prosecuting in Kansas, there was this guy who was somewhat homeless. He was homeless a good portion of the year. Sometimes he had a house, sometimes he didn't. But what he would do is
What's the weather like in Kansas?
when
In the winter?
cold and crappy. We routinely will get, our snowfalls there aren't that big. We only get 12 to 15 inches, which is not that much, honestly. Well, as compared to like Syracuse or Minnesota or whatever. But the problem there is it gets real cold. So it'll get -10 without the wind chill, and then you get an extra 15 or 20 degrees on wind chill. It feels awful. Yeah, rugby in Kansas in February is terrible. Anyway, so it gets real cold in the wintertime. This guy's homeless. He doesn't want to be outside. So he understands the sentencing grid, that other thing we talked about, to know how he can get a 6-month sentence for something. And so he'll go and he'll do a crime and he'll get caught right around October. He'll get a 6-month sentence and he'll get out in April or May. Well, the judge, I think, picked up on this. And so he goes in for his sentencing and the judge gives him probation. And he's pissed. He starts grumbling. And the way that it works is the judge is kind of in the middle of the two counsel tables. And then there's a spot for the inmates to sit over here, and they go out like this. Like when they come up and stand with their defender, then they leave this way to go to the jail. It's not like here where they make them all leave at once. They'll take them one at a time because the building's connected. The jail is literally downstairs. So this guy's standing there, and on the way out, there's two flags, the Kansas flag and the United States flag. And on the way out, he's grumbling, and the judge is still talking to the court reporter or somebody, and the guy knocks the flags over, and I'm pretty sure he punched a hole in the wall, like he hit the drywall or something, and he's cussing, and the judge is like, no, get him back here. Get him back here right now. And he comes back, and little backstory on the judge, there's a parade every year around Halloween time called the Doodah Parade. And it's where people dress crazy, and they kind of just walk down the street with the floats and all this. Well, this particular judge always dresses essentially in drag. But he does like crazy hair and crazy makeup. Awesome at walking in heels, however. Like just going. No big deal. The guy comes back and the judge is like, what's wrong with you? What are you doing? And he says, F you, judge. Everybody knows that you're a expletive related to
Homophobic slur.
And the judge goes, all right, that's it. You're in contempt. 6 months. We'll see you in a little bit to see what if your attitude's changed or something like that. I can't remember exactly what he said because I'm floored at this point. Like everybody in there is just holding their breath. They're like, what the hell? Because the marshals everybody was so caught off guard. They didn't even know what to do, right? Because this is not a normal situation. People don't address the judges like that. They usually show some deference, especially in a situation when the judge can make your life messed up by sentencing you to 6 months in jail. But that turns out that's what this guy wanted. So it was just a really weird situation. And then I'm over there laughing. The next part of the question was, did I keep my composure? Absolutely not. And my boss is sitting in there. And so then I have to turn and leave the room because I'm starting to laugh and I'm barely still biting on the inside of my lip, not laughing out loud in the courtroom. And the judge was pissed. If I had laughed, I probably would have got held in contempt because he did not find it funny. And it wasn't funny. That kind of conduct has no place in a courtroom or anywhere for that matter.
Very true. Very true. And it sounds like he was doing that to...
Yeah, he got what he wanted.
But in this, Kansas is a little bit different than Las Vegas and
easy.
Not as progressive as Las Vegas, that is, a little more conservative there, I'd say.
Probably.
A little bit, so...
Just a skosh.
State courtrooms, the courtrooms I've been to here in civil cases, criminal cases, they are usually packed with people. You have a morning calendar, and they put on 5 to 30 cases that the judge wants to talk about in that morning. City calendars also like that. Federal courtrooms, not like that at all. They usually call in only specific cases. So for some context, my story has to deal with a courtroom that is packed with people. Some get standing room only, just a ton of attorneys. Pre-COVID, we would always go to hearings in person. Now, all of our courtrooms have kind of set up remote video stuff, but this isn't a time when courtroom is packed.
Except for Henderson Municipal Court. Shout out for living in 1925. Thanks, guys.
Henderson Municipal, no remote appearance. Have to make the drive out there.
Yep. Even if it only lasts 34 seconds.
Yes. So just to put into context, there's a lot of people in this courtroom. And attorneys just kind of sit there and you don't got anything else. So you're listening to the cases that are being called up. One case got called up that I had heard about, but didn't know that it was in front of this same judge. It was Judge Crockett, he was a rock star attorney in his time. Became a judge, and he was a strict judge. He is one of the judges, not all judges do this, but one of the judges that's very strict about rules. Hey, get this done when I say it needs to be done. Just kind of follow this rule, get this done. The rule says 10 days. I'm not lax on that.
And when the statute says it, that's the other thing. I mean, he's just literally echoing what the statute says.
And every time somebody comes up, he will quote a rule, say, pursuant to NRCP, you need to get this done within 10 days.
Yep.
So he would always, kind of always say that in his cases. So we're in this courtroom listening to the now retired Judge Crockett, amazing judge, and a case gets called up that is a local attorney had been accused of having a small member in a blog comment area for attorneys. There is a blog that attorneys post on, attorneys look at, and
I've never seen this blog.
a local personal injury attorney was accused of having a small member, and he decided to sue the blog host Google and a John Doe because he didn't know who had anonymously posted this comment. So I was enthralled realizing that I was in this courtroom listening to this case. The commenter or person who hosted the blog appeared in the case under a pseudonym of Legal Eagle. So a legal eagle is just kind of a common phrase for somebody who knows the law. So they had appeared through an attorney, but the person suing had not found the right person. And Google was involved as well. And they were kind of explaining this, and Judge Crockett out of nowhere said, "Oh, so these aren't the droids you're looking for?" And the courtroom just kind of like takes in that he just made a Star Wars reference.
And a joke.
And a joke at the same time. And like, we were kind of in shock, but I'm internally laughing, but don't know if I can like outwardly laugh, and kind of, you look at the people, attorneys around you like, "Hey, did you get that? Did you get that?" Like, and it just took me off guard because
Crockett does not make jokes. Did not make jokes.
At
least not in the courtroom. I never met him outside of the courtroom, but every single time I was in there, like most rule followers are, he was very just
yeah. He
dry, methodical.
Cracked that joke, and it might have been the levity of the case, which was just insane as well.
That's absurd.
And so that not too many funny things happen. Like there's lawyer jokes that are kind of
Sure.
dumb, but we just kind of we're boring up there. The judge is just trying to get through their calendar.
Yeah. Some judges are good with senses of humor. Holthus, Kroll, Sacento, not. I mean, he doesn't mind jokes. He makes some jokes sometimes, but the Justice Court judges seem to have such a packed calendar. They don't really have a lot of air for that. But I've made jokes generally at my own expense, like self-deprecating humor that Kroll and Holthus have laughed at. And those are the two judges that the track goes up to, so I see them the most. But certainly I've made those jokes to court staff, and they find them very funny.
We like to have fun.
We do like to have fun here.
It's tough because sometimes we have family members in galleries of, in custody defendants, and some of their emotions are overpouring, and somebody might be getting sentenced to a prison time.
Yeah, you can't be seen to be aloof when it comes to something so serious.
And criminal law has so many more appearances. You're in the courtroom so much more for criminal law than you are for civil cases.
Correct.
So, those are super serious most of the time. You do have people who are in custody trying to fight for their freedoms. So,
and the stakes are way higher.
There's not too many funny moments, except if you like lawyer humor, which who really does, because it's just stupid.
Not me.
But these aren't the droids you're looking for.
No. And when you want jail time, just cuss out a judge. You'll get it. I promise you.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
This might be the last time it's just me and Justin. We're setting up to invite guests. If you'd like to guest, please comment. If you have an interesting legal story, we will,
We should do a call-in like you did.
Entertain the thought of having you here.
For next week, we're going to be hosting a candidate for family court judge here in Las Vegas, who also works as a public defender now and has over 20 years experience representing children in the juvenile justice courts. I'm very excited to have her on the show. She's an awesome lady, always very nice and pretty funny. Makes jokes in the courtroom.
I love making jokes.
She can make jokes because she's short and nice and never mean and always on the ball. I'm none of those things.
And I'm boring. So
he is boring.
That is.
All right.
Who I
Until
am.
next time.
Take care, Tangled Rights. Thank you, listeners.